Good morning, everyone. My paper is on determinants for anemic retinopathy in Indian population. No financial disclosures. According to WHO, anemia is defined as hemoglobin level less than 13 in men and less than 12 in women. When we looked at the prevalence of anemia among different countries, we found the highest prevalence is noted in Indian and African subcontinents. According to major pharma companies, India has greater than 40% prevalence of anemia. So anemic retinopathy has varied presentations from a simple rod spot to multi-layered hemorrhages such as subialan bleed and pre-retinal hemorrhages. But what is the prevalence of anemic retinopathy? So this paper from European Journal of Hematology said that anemic retinopathy was observed in 28.3% of patients when hemoglobin is less than 8 and thrombocytopenia less than 50,000. They also found that patients who have coexistent thrombocytopenia incidence was increased to 38%. But is the prevalence of anemia between Asian countries and European countries same? No. Is the type of anemia same between countries of two continents? No. Can we take the cutoff for anemia for developing anemic retinopathy from European studies and apply for our Indian population? Definitely not. Do we have any studies from Indian subcontinent on the prevalence and factors causing anemic retinopathy? So we found none. So with this background, our aim of the study was to calculate the prevalence of fundus lesions in anemic patients and define the risk factors for anemic retinopathy. Coming to the methodology, our paper was a prospective cross-sectional cohort study in patients who were diagnosed with anemia between May 2019 to April 2020, who have undergone a dilated fundus examination and documented the images using Topcon and Optos. So presence of any of the following features on retinal examination leads to diagnosis of anemic retinopathy, such as hemorrhages that can present at all the levels of retina and choroid, dot spots, exudates, cotton wool spots, retinal edema, venous tortuosity, optic disc edema or pallor. Following blood parameters were done such as hemoglobin, hematocrit, mean corpuscular volume, mean corpuscular hemoglobin, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, platelet count, and the most important one was peripheral smear examination. We have excluded following patients who have coexistent systemic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and causes of retinopathy mimicking anemic retinopathy. We have also excluded anemic retinopathy occurring as a secondary manifestations with known systemic diseases and following treatment with radiation and chemotherapy. We have also excluded patients who have poor media quality. So once the patients are diagnosed with anemia, we have grouped into two categories. Group 1 is with anemic retinopathy and the other is without anemic retinopathy. So appropriate statistics were done using GraphPad Prism software. Coming to the results, we found 128 eyes of 70 patients, out of which we have 38 eyes of 23 patients in group 1 and 90 eyes of 47 patients in group 2. So when we looked at two groups, no anemic retinopathy versus anemic retinopathy group, we found age and gender has no significant relation. Likewise, type of anemia and the visual acuity. So there is a frequency distribution of different features of anemic retinopathy. We found subialan bleed has a majority, approximately 35%, and following the other manifestations. When we looked at the blood parameters between two groups, we found hemoglobin and hematocrit has significantly lower values in the anemic retinopathy group compared to the without anemic retinopathy group. ROC curve analysis also shows that hemoglobin and PAC cell volume has the maximum area under the curve. When we looked at the cutoff values, hemoglobin less than 8.95 has sensitivity of 86% and specificity of 69% to develop anemic retinopathy, and hematocrit less than 30.5 has 80% sensitivity and 53.2% specificity to develop anemic retinopathy. Multivariate analysis also showed that hemoglobin and PCV are the most important determinants factors for anemic retinopathy. So our study, important take-home results of our study are severe anemia either due to reduced hemoglobin or hematocrit played a significant role in the pathogenesis of anemic retinopathy. The prevalence of anemic retinopathy in our study was 29.6%, which is not the true prevalence. From the ROC curve analysis, cutoff value of HB less than 8.9 and hematocrit less than 30.5 has the highest sensitivity to predict the occurrence of anemic retinopathy. The bivariate regression analysis also showed that hemoglobin and hematocrit are the equally important determinants for anemic retinopathy, and the rest of the blood indices doesn't have any correlation. There are few limitations to our study, such as small sample size, disproportionate number of cases between two groups, absence of subgroup analysis with respect to age, gender, and type of anemia. To conclude, retinopathy is a frequent finding in anemic patients with low hemoglobin less than 9 and hematocrit less than 30%. Thus, it is recommended that all patients having low hemoglobin and low hematocrit undergo a dilated fundus. Thank you.
Thank you for a nice presentation, Dr. Nikita. Totally agree with you that this is a small subset of patient, but very important subset of patient which often gets under, overlooked. And presence of sub-ileum bleed, as rightly pointed out with you. Specifically, do you look for any clinical signs in the retinal evaluation apart from those which you have mentioned already? But how will you say that this patient needs an anemic workup? Any take-home messages on that?
We
Any
see
point?
that all the subileum bleed, multi-layered hemorrhages, rod spots mainly, sir.
So basically looking for the clinical signs of, which are not fitting into the diabetic retinopathy subgroup. Dr. Parth, you want to add something on this?
Definitely, as she told, usually we are seeing rod spots first in this kind of retinopathy, and if hemoglobin is less, I think all the patients should undergo dilated fundus examination, and if ultrawide field fundus imaging is available, that is quite useful, which we use routinely here, and that is quite useful in undilated. We can see this kind of patients.